KWT slaying.
Salama family, salama, how y'all doing today? Hope you're blessed and highly favored. So we're living in some interesting times. I know some of this stuff I'm gonna talk about today. You know how I say, eat the meat, spit out the bones. Um, it's some stuff I see and how I see things. My brother and I sometimes we'll sit back and we hypothesize on a lot of stuff. I'm gonna share some of that with you today, and it makes sense to me. It makes sense to me, especially when you look at what we see in the scriptures, not from the Eurocentric Christian viewpoint. You know, if you're in Eurocentric Christianity, there's no way you're going to understand. But if you're a biblically oriented person, whether or not you're Israelite or see yourself as an Israelite or you're a Gentile, if you're biblically oriented, you will see, there's hints of this in the scriptures. But before I get started, I'm going to ask you all a few questions. How many of you in the chat believe that there were giants? If you do, give me a 1. If you don't, give me a 2. And how many of you all believe that these giants were the offspring of human women with fallen angels? If you believe that, give me a 3. If you don't, give me a 4. All right, so we got mostly 3s. I see a 4, 2 4s. All right, so those who have the 3s may understand what's happening here and what I'm about to discuss. Because here's the thing. You have people who believe in the supernatural. I'm one of them. And you have those who don't believe in the supernatural. And you have those who cannot accept the supernatural because what they call that? Cognitive dissonance, right? So if you have cognitive dissonance, then you're not going to believe a lot of the stuff in the Bible. You won't believe that God divided the Red Sea. You're not going to believe that Yeshua raised people from the dead. You're not going to believe a lot of things that happens in what we call canon. But the Bible talks about a lot of stuff. And, I have a series, some of you all saw it. It's called the Ancient World series. The Ancient World series will give you a foundation of what I'm going to talk about today. Why? Why is this important? Well, I shared a video in my community on YouTube. And, it's sort of hard to believe type stuff, but you see, literally some of the scientific progress that happened now. If you notice in a lot of the movies like Thor and all these things, right? Asgard. We're going to talk a little bit about that too. What do you notice about the imagery of the Thor movies and Marvel is that they got this godlike figure with all these other little smaller guys, lowercase g, and they have basically a high-tech society. Now, the problem with Eurocentric, well, one of the many problems, let's say, with Eurocentric Christianity is that one, they spiritualize everything. The spiritualization of those things never interfaces with the physical. Whereas in the Bible, we see things where it interfaces, or the spiritual realm interfaces with the physical. For example, the sons of God came down and saw that the women were fair and took wives of all they chose. And these men became men of renown, right? There were giants in the land, right? Genesis 6, right? Now, a lot of people try to, reinterpret that to mean some other thing, or that these guys were just tall, they weren't giants, or, with other foolishness. But the clear reading of the Bible, if you just want to be honest, without trying to manipulate and reinterpret, the original clear understanding is that there were quote unquote giants that we see in mythology. Now, when we look at what's happening today, we have an advance in technology unlike anything I've ever seen, right? I told y'all, I'm in my 50s. And the technology is off the chain. The growth of technology is off the chain. It's at the level where, if you went back in time, people would think you're a god, right? Because of the type of technology they had. Now, remember in the past, I talked about what a god is. It's a divine being with what? Supernatural powers, right? That's powers outside of normal humanity. So you have a divine being with supernatural powers. Now, our God, our Elohim, is that. He is a divine being with supernatural powers. But he is the Elohim of Elohims. He is the creator God. He created all that you see and that is. But we have a counterfeit God, right? Some people call him Satan, right? Satan means the adversary, right? And so we're going to talk about some of this, what I think is happening, right? What I think is really truly happening, and some of the conspiracy guys, this is a conspiracy show. I mean, there's a few scriptures in here, not much at all. This is a conspiracy show, and I believe this is what's happening. And here's the thing, family, and like I said too, let me put the warning out, because I don't want you to say, oh, he's just negative all the time. It is what it is. We in some serious doo-doo. We are. We are in trouble. Serious trouble. These people are crazy. They're nuts, right? Now, I'm not going to get too much into that. I'm going to talk a little bit about it, but not much, only to make a point. Only to make a point of where this technology comes from. Okay, where this technology comes from and who's behind the pandemic, who's behind the reset, who's behind all this stuff. All right, so we're going to start off with scripture. Always good to start off with scripture, right? So we have Ephesians 6:12. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. So there's a hierarchy of principalities. The darkness, remember we talked about darkness? Darkness is synonymous with death. Darkness is synonymous with death. So we have a people who are in the occult who's obsessed with death and obsessed with taking out Israelites, right? I mean, it's happening every day almost now. Now, remember, I did a few videos back in the day that talked about this, that the persecution of the Israelites would increase for a short time until the Most High come and deliver us. But we're going to have to endure. Those who endure to the end shall what? Be saved or be delivered. Now, some people can't separate the idea of the spiritual salvation, that's the Christian, they own everything only spiritual, and the physical salvation, which is a deliverance from your enemies and captivity and stuff. That's what we're waiting on. Hopefully, most of you Israelites are born again, believe in Yeshua as Lord and Savior, Creator God, right? Hopefully, y'all know who the Savior is. Now, I don't know if y'all follow stuff like I do, but it is bad. It's bad. And it is at a level that I don't understand why people can't see it. I don't understand why Christians who are still in their delusion, I don't understand how all these things happen and only mostly Israelites understand what's happening. Now, some of them white folks do, they know what's happening, but they only see so far because they don't know who the people are. But I'm gonna share this with you. This is the only like modern thing I'm gonna share today. Why? Because it shows you, this is really just to show you where we're at, what time frame we're in, and there's not much time left. I told y'all I don't think we have a lot of time left, but let's look at this right quick.
I got the idea when I was in the line at the supermarket, and I saw that to pay is a quite complex and process that takes a lot of time. So I thought that there must be an easier way to pay and a quicker way to pay, and that was the start of Quickster. When you're going to pay in a supermarket, you enter your four last digits in your phone number, and then you hold your hand above the sensor. And a transaction takes less than 5 seconds. So it's a very quick payment solution.
I think it's really good. It's easy when I don't have my wallet with me. I can use my hand, so it's really fast and easy.
The vein pattern in your palm is unique for each individual person. And the four last digits in your phone number is because people want a moment to just like look at the display and see that the amount is correct before they pay. At the moment, we're active at about 15 places around campus, and we have about 1,600 users using it. We're the first on the market and the first company to deploy a biometric payment solution where you pay with your palm. There are other companies looking at similar solution, but they're not on the market yet. Of course, we had problems like connect all the players on the market, the financial sector, the banks, the stores, supermarkets, and then to package it to a solution that the customers want to use and that it's easy for them to use.
So the conditioning is here, obviously, for the mark of the beast. Right now, they're scanning their right hand. I can't make this up. They're scanning their right hand in order to make purchases. No one will be able to buy, trade, or sell unless they have to mark his name or the number of his name. The only thing next is the tattoo or the chip implant. That's it. How far is that off? A few months? A few years? Now, combine that with everything we know, combine that with all of the destruction and the threat of World War III and the lack of food and the lack of water and the Great Reset and combine it all together, and you tell me how much time you think we got left. Now, the question we have to ask ourselves is, where did the stuff come from? How did we grow so quickly on a technological scale that's beyond imagination? You know as well as I do that these people are not that smart. You know as well as I do, without help, this exponential growth of technology would not have gone to this level. Now, understand this. The video I shared in the community, you should go watch it. They have what they call what? Camptons or something like that, like computerized atoms that come together and form objects. Literally, I mean, this is Rice University stuff. Go look for yourself. So the question we have to ask is, where did the technology come from? How were they able to grow so fast? Now we've heard things over the years, over time, rumors of where this stuff come from. Now, for you all who hit number 4, who don't believe that the quote unquote fathers of these giants were angels, well, you know, some of y'all don't believe in the book of Enoch. I believe the first book of Enoch should be canon. That's my opinion. I believe the first book of Enoch should be canon, and that's why the Ethiopians used it and other people, and we don't, because they don't want us to recognize the supernatural. So this is the first book of Enoch. It says the words of the blessing of Enoch, wherewith he blessed the elect and righteous who will be living in the day of tribulation. That's us. We are in the day of tribulation. This is us. This was to you, Israel. Who is this to? Let me read it again. The words of the blessing of Enoch, wherewith he what? Blessed the elect and righteous, the elect, the chosen ones, who will what? Be living in the day of tribulation, when all the wicked and godless are to be removed. So we in that time frame that all of the wicked, we see all of this wickedness, right? God is going to remove these people. Now, that don't mean we're going to get out unscathed. We got to be ready. We got to be living holy lives. We got to be committed. We got to walk upright and be a good example for the world, right? So, and he took up his parable and said, Enoch, a righteous man whose eyes were opened by Yah, saw the vision of the Holy One in the heavens, which the angels showed me, and from them I heard everything, and from them I understood as I saw. But not for this generation, but for a remote one, which is for to come. That's us, family. We're here. Concerning the elect, can I say chosen? I said, and to up my parable concerning them. Now, let's continue. So the Holy Great One will come forth from his dwelling, and the eternal God will tread upon the earth on Mount Sinai and appear from his camp, and appear in the strength of his might from the heaven of heavens. And all shall be smitten with fear, and the watchers shall quake. These are the fathers of those giants we talked about, the watchers. And great fear and trembling shall seize them unto the ends of the earth. And the high mountains shall be shaken, and the high hills shall be made low, and shall melt like wax before the flame. And the earth shall be wholly rent in sunder, and all that is upon the earth shall perish. And there shall be a judgment upon all men. But with the righteous, he will make peace. So we see that that judgment is on the Luciferians and on the wicked and on these people who taking the chip implant and taking other things, right? The judgment is on these people who are going along with the New World Order propaganda. So, and will protect the elect, can I say chosen? He will protect the chosen, and mercy shall be upon them. And they shall all belong to Yah, and they shall be prospered, and they shall be blessed. And he will help them all, and light shall appear unto them, and he will make peace with them. And behold, he cometh with 10,000s of his holy ones to execute judgment upon all. What does that sound like? Jude. And to destroy all the ungodly, and to convict all flesh of all the works of their ungodliness which they have ungodly committed, and of all the hard things which ungodly sinners have spoken against him. See, they spoke against the Most High like they do. They speak against his people like they do. And God is coming to judge them. Observe ye everything that takes place in the heaven, how they do not change their orbits, and the luminaries which are in heaven, how they all rise and set in order in its season, and transgress not against their appointed order. Behold ye the earth, and give heed to the things which take place upon it, from first to last. How steadfast they are, how none of the things upon the earth change. What? None of the things upon the earth change. So where's those giants at? But all the works of God appear to you. Behold, the summer and the winter, how the whole earth is filled with water, and clouds and dew and rain lie upon it. Observe and see how in the winter all the trees seems as though they had withered and shed all their leaves, except 14 trees, which do not lose their foliage, but retain the old foliage from 2 to 3 years till the new comes. And again observe ye the days of summer, how the sun is above the earth over it, and you seek shade and shelter by reason of the heat of the sun, and the earth also burns with growing heat. And so you cannot tread on the earth or rock by reason of this heat. As observe ye how the trees cover themselves with green leaves and bear fruit. Wherefore give ye heed and know with regard to all his works, and recognize how he that liveth forever hath made them so. And all his works go on thus from year to year forever, and all the tasks which they accomplish for him, and their tasks change not, but according as Yah had ordained, so is it done. And behold, how the sea and the rivers in like manner accomplished and change not their tasks from his commandments. But ye have not been steadfast, nor done the commandments of the Lord. But you have turned away and spoken proud and hard words with your impure mouths against his greatness. O ye hard-hearted, ye shall find no peace. Therefore shall ye execrate your days, and the years of your life shall perish, and the years of your destruction shall be multiplied in eternal execrations, and ye shall find no mercy. All right, so I'm going to scroll down a little bit. Down here. All right. Chapter 7. And all the others together with them took unto themselves wives. This is those angels, those fallen angels that we call them, the watchers. And each chose for himself one. And they began to go in unto them and defile themselves with them, and they taught them charms. So what happened? This is the Genesis 6 experience right here, where those beings came down and had sex with human women. And they taught them things, charms, witchcraft. Now, you got to understand this too, family. This is my opinion. Eat the meat, spit out the bone. A lot of what we see in terms of charms can be magic, right? What we call magic, supernatural powers. But also what we call charms could be technology. And I believe in many instances, they are probably technology. All right. So taught them charms and enchantments and the cutting of roots. Cutting of roots, right? That's medicine and all that stuff we do today, right? And made them acquainted with plants, right? Medicinal herbs. And they became pregnant and they bare great giants. See, this is the Genesis 6. So, those who don't believe this, well, I think Enoch confirms what we see in what we call canon. Whose height was 3,000 ells, who consumed all the acquisitions of men. And when men could no longer sustain them, the giants turned against them and devoured mankind, and they began to sin against birds, like we're doing today, reptiles and fish, and to devour one another's flesh and drink the blood. Then the earth laid accusation against the lawless ones. Now the Bible says, as it was in the days of Noah, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. According to Jasher, they taught men how to mix one species with another. How would they know these things? What we're doing today, how would they know these things unless it happened? Now, the question is, where are these giants today? Where are they? Did they just disappear? We're going to talk about that. And Azazel taught men to make swords and knives and shields and breastplates, and made known to them the metals of the earth and the art of working them, and bracelets and ornaments, and the use of antimony, and the beautifying of their eyelids, and all kinds of costly stones, and all coloring tinctures. And there arose much godlessness, and they committed fornication, and they were led astray. See, a lot of people are being led astray today and became corrupt in all their ways. Semyaja taught enchantments and root cuttings. Aramaros, the resolving of enchantments. Barakel taught astrology. Kokobel, the constellations. Ezekiel, the knowledge of the clouds. Arakel, the signs of the earth. Shamzil, the signs of the sun. And Sariel, the course of the moon. And as men perished, perished, they cried, and their cry went up to heaven. See, a lot of people are dying today. No one wants to admit it, but a lot of people are dying today. Now, let's look at this with different eyes. And Azazel taught men how to make rockets, guns, Patriot batteries. The question we have to ask ourselves, how did we know the metals to use for our cell phones? How did we know to get those metals from Africa for our cell phones and for our computers? How did we know these metals would do what they do unless somebody told them? Understand that the angels, what we call angels, the watchers, according to Enoch, is teaching what we call technology today. Now, remember, Semyaza taught enchantments and root cuttings. Can we say medicine? Can we say medicine? Semyaza taught them medicine, this corrupt form of medicine we have today. Armaramos, the resolving of enchantments. Barakel taught astrology. Kokobel, the constellations. Can we say NASA? Can we say NASA? Why is America and the Western powers trying to go into outer space? Why they talk about going to Mars? Why they talk about going to the moon? Where did they get this desire from? And then Michael, Uriel, Raphael, and Gabriel looked down from heaven and saw much blood being shed upon the earth. Look, when this World War III kicks off full force, there's going to be more blood. People are already dying. And all lawlessness being wrought upon the earth, and they say one to another, the earth made without inhabitant cries the voice of their crying up to the gates of heaven. And now to you, the holy ones of heaven, the souls of men make their suit, saying, bring our cause before the Most High. Family, we need to bring our cause before the Most High. We are in trouble. We need to bring our cause before the Most High. We are in trouble. Some people don't realize it. Some people tell y'all the 400 years a lie. I don't understand how after all of this stuff that's going on, they believe that. I don't get it. It's spiritual. Only those who have eyes to see apparently can see. And they said to the Lord of the ages, Lord of lords, God of gods, King of kings, my King, Yeshua, and Elohim of the ages, the throne of thy glory standeth unto all the generations of the ages. And thy name holy and glorious and blessed unto all the ages. Thou hast made all things, and power over all things hast thou, and all things are naked and open in thy sight, and thou seest all things, and nothing can hide itself from thee. Thou seest what Azazel had done, who had what? Taught all unrighteousness on earth, and revealed the eternal secrets which were which were preserved in heaven. So Azazel taught all unrighteousness and eternal secrets. Can we say DNA? Can we say manipulation of the genome? Can we say CERN? Can we say body hacking? This is devil stuff. So eternal secrets which were what? Preserved in heaven. And nobody was supposed to be able to hack your DNA, that book of life, that genome, which men were striving what? To learn. They want to know the secrets of the heavens. They want to know the genome. They want to hack the DNA, and they want to hack you. And Semyaza, to whom thou hast given authority to bear rule over his associates, and they have gone to the daughters of men upon the earth and have slept with the women. See, it's clear here in Enoch. And have defiled themselves and revealed to them all kinds of sins. And the women have borne giants, and the whole earth was thereby being filled with blood and unrighteousness. And now, behold, the souls of those who have died are crying and making their suit to the gates of heaven. And their lamentations have ascended and cannot cease because of the lawless deeds which are wrought on the earth. And thou knowest all things before they come to pass. And thou seest these things, and thou dost suffer them. And thou dost not say to us what we are to do to them in regard to these. Then said the Most High, the Holy and Great One spake, and sent Uriel to the son of Lamech, and said to him, go to Noah, and tell him in my name, hide thyself and reveal to him the end that is approaching, that the whole earth will what? Be destroyed, and a deluge is about to come upon the whole earth, and will destroy all that is on it, as it was in the days of what? Noah. So shall the coming of the Son of Man be. And now instruct him that he may escape, and his seed may be preserved for all the generations of the world. And again, the Lord said to Raphael, bind Azazel in hand and foot, and cast him into the darkness, and make an opening in the desert, which is in Dudael, and cast him therein, and place upon him rough and jagged rocks, and cover him with darkness, and let him abide there forever, and cover his face, that he may not see light. And on the day of the great judgment he shall be cast into fire, and heal the earth which the angels have corrupted. Heal the earth which the angels have corrupted through their lollipops. And proclaim the healing of the earth, that they may heal the plague. Come on now. Think about our current situation, that they may heal the plague, and that all the children of men may not perish through all the secret things, the DNA, the manipulations, the body hacking, that the watchers have disclosed and taught and have taught their sons. And the whole earth has been corrupted, DNA manipulated, through the works that were taught by Azazel. To him ascribe all sin. And to Gabriel said the Lord, proceed against the bastards and the reprobates, and against the children of fornication, and destroy the children of fornication and the children of the watchers from amongst men, and cause them to go forth. Send them once again, send them one again against the other, that they may destroy each other in battle for length of days. Shall they not have this? Allow World War III to come so that they could kill each other. They may not be giants today, but I'm just saying. And no request that they, i.e., their fathers, make of thee shall be granted unto their fathers on their behalf, for they hope to live an eternal life. They hope to live an eternal life. How? Through technology, body hacking, manipulating of DNA, the secret thing that only abided in heaven. And that each one of them will live 500 years. And the Lord said to Michael, go, bind Semyaza and his associates, who have united themselves with women, so as to have defiled themselves with them in all their uncleanness. And when their sons have slain one another, and they have seen the destruction of their beloved ones, bind them fast for 70 generations in the valleys of the earth, till the day of the judgment and of their consummation, till the judgment that is forever and ever is consummated. In those days they shall be led off to the abyss of fire, to the torment in the prison in which they shall be confined forever. And whosoever shall be condemned and destroyed will from thenceforth be bound together with them to end of all generations, and destroy all the spirits of the reprobate and the children of the watchers, because they have wronged mankind. They are wronging mankind. This is what they're doing today. Go watch that video I told you about in the community. Destroy all wrong from the face of the earth, and let every evil work come to an end. And let the plan of righteousness and truth appear, and it shall prove a blessing. The works of righteousness, truth shall be planted in truth and joy forevermore. The scriptures say that a time would come where, if possible, the whole world would be, everyone would be destroyed. The Bible says that men are going to become like, rare gold, right? Precious gold, hard to find, not many. Now, understand, it's not just the nukes. It's the medical technology as well. Now, understand this. This has happened before, right? There's nothing new under the sun. What was is what shall be. There's nothing new under the sun. Manipulation of DNA, offspring of the fallen angels. Some of these offspring are giants, and I believe some aren't. I think today they got past some of the giant issues, which is why some of these people are crazy, why they kill us in the streets, why they pretend to be police officers and leaders of governments and stuff like that. They're doing things that make no sense to a human. Y'all know who the humans are, right? They do things that make no sense to humans. They are wicked beyond imagination. So we see these people, we see the things they do, we see how evil they are, we see that they manipulate the genome, we see that they manipulate animals, we see them trying to manipulate the fruits and the vegetables, we see that they're creating fake suns, we see they're creating fake gods, lowercase g, we see they're creating fake worlds called metaverse, we see that they're creating a bunch of stuff that makes no sense to humans. Now, like I said before, where are these people? Where are they? If they're influencing humanity, if they're influencing the Luciferians, if they're influencing the WHO, if they're influencing the UN, if they're influencing the world governments, where are they? Now, like I said, eat the meat, spit out the bone. This is what I think. So there's a place called Orgata. Orgata, sometimes Gartha, Garti, Argarath, Argata, Argata, is a legendary kingdom that is said to be located in the Earth's core. It is related to the belief in a hollow earth and is a popular subject in esotericism. Now, some people are going to say, well, Tail Ministry is teaching esoteric thoughts and stuff like that. No, there's a story in the Bible that talks about where the dead would go, and they call it Sheol. And there's a good side, which was called Abraham's bosom. The Greeks called it Elysian fields. And there was another side where people were under the earth and they were tormented in fire and flames. There's a realm inside the earth that people live. I know it sounds crazy, but understand, if you take what the scriptures teach, not through Eurocentric eyes, of course not. They're a bunch of Calvinists. They don't believe nothing. They're a bunch of Calvinists, and they don't believe you can even make a decision for salvation, to choosing to serve Yeshua or not. They're a bunch of Calvinists. But anyway, let's continue. So history, the legend remained mostly obscured in Europe until a detailed account by the 19th century French occultist Alexandre Saint-Yves de Alavendre was published posthumously in 1910. In his 1922 book, Beasts, Men, and Gods, explorer Ferdinand Ossendowski relates a story which was imparted to him concerning what? A subterranean kingdom which exists inside the earth. The kingdom was known to a fictional Buddhist society as Agartha. Agartha is frequently associated or confused with Shambhala, similar concept as Shambhala, the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, Shambhala is a spiritual kingdom. Shambhala is mentioned in the Tantra. The Bon scriptures speak of a closely related land called Tagzig. I believe that this place exists. This is a conspiracy show. This isn't a doctrine show so much as a conspiracy show. So prominently in the Buddhism and Tibetan teachings and revived in the West by Blavatsky and the Theosophical Society. Theosophists in particular regard Agartha as a vast complex of caves underneath the Tibetan inhabited by demigods. Inhabited by who? Demigods called Asuras. Helena and Nicholas Roerich, whose teachings closely parallel theosophy, see Shambhala's existence as both spiritual and physical. See, this is what we got to keep in mind. It's always the spiritual and the physical. It's not just the spiritual, it's always the spiritual and the physical. Father Yah is referred to what? As the invisible God. Yeshua is referred to as what? The visible God, or the image of the invisible God. What is the image of the invisible God? Something you can see. There's always the spiritual and the physical. So here's what I believe is happening. I believe that the world is run through this spiritual hierarchy. And just as we saw in Enoch, where the angels, the watchers, taught men and controlled men, they're doing it today. The watchers are controlling men and giving them technology. The watchers are moving now, right? Why? The watchers are concerned because they know that their time is short. Why? Because the Israelites then woke up after 400 years. What are the odds? They didn't know who they were. We controlled information. We controlled society. We brainwashed them, told them they're Africans. We told them they're Negro. We told them they're black. We didn't tell them they're Israel. We didn't want to do that because we want to keep them enslaved. What did the Pope say? Perpetual enslavement. So we're being ruled by this spiritual hierarchy that we saw in Ephesians 6:12, right? And they're ruling on more than just what they call the inner earth, but we believe or suspect that there are other continents. There are hidden continents that are not being shown on our maps. Now, we're going to talk about someone. His name is Admiral Byrd. I talked about Admiral Byrd in the past. Now, this is going to be a short clip of video from someone else, but Admiral Byrd said that he went to this place in the Antarctic, which you can't go because there's a treaty now. All of the world signed a treaty, so we can't go. We can't go fly up in those parts of the Antarctic or take a boat because you're going to be arrested or killed or whatever. But you can't go there. But Admiral Byrd had a story to tell. And let's hear it.
10:05. I alter altitude to 1,400 feet and execute a sharp left turn to better examine the valley below. It is green, with either moss or type of tight-knit grass. The light here seems different. I cannot see the sun anymore. We make another left turn and we spot what seems to be large animal of some kind below. It appears to be an elephant. No, it looks more like a mammoth. This is incredible, yet there it is. Decrease altitude to 1,000 feet and take binoculars to better
Now, just to let you know, he's reading from Admiral Byrd's diary.
examine the animal. It is confirmed. It is definitely a mammoth-like animal. Report this to base camp. 10:30 hours. Encountering more rolling green hills now. The external temperature indicator reads 74 degrees Fahrenheit. Continuing on our heading now. Navigation instruments seem normal now. I am puzzled over the actions. Attempt to contact base camp. Radio is not functioning. 11:30 hours. Countryside below is more level and normal, if I may use that word. Ahead we spot what seems to be a city. This is impossible. Aircraft seems light and oddly buoyant. The controls refuse to respond. My God. Off our port and starboard wings are a strange type of aircraft. They are closing rapidly alongside. They are disc-shaped and have a radiant quality to them. They are close enough now to see the markings on them. It is a type of swastika. This is fantastic. Where are we? What is happening? I tug at the controls again. They will not respond. We are caught in an invisible vice grip of some type. A radio crackles and voice comes through in English for what it perhaps is a slight Nordic or Germanic accent. The message is, "Welcome, Admiral, to our domain. We shall land you in exactly 7 minutes. Relax, Admiral. You're in good hands. I note the engines of our plane have stopped running. The aircraft is under some strange control and is now turning itself. The controls are useless." 11:40 hours. Another radio message received. We begin the landing process now, and in moments the plane shudders slightly and begins to descend, as though caught in some great unseen elevator. The downward motion is negligible, and we touch down with only a slight jolt. 11:45 hours. I'm making a hasty last entry in the flight log. Several men are approaching on foot toward our aircraft. They are tall with blonde hair. In the distance is a large, shimmering city, pulsating with rainbow hues of color. I do not know what is going to happen now, but I see no signs of weapons, and those approaching. I hear now a voice ordering me by name to open the cargo door. I comply. End log. From this point on, I write all the following events here for memory. It defies the imagination and would seem all but madness if it had not happened. The radio man and I are taken from the aircraft, and we are received in a most cordial manner. We then boarded on a small platform-like conveyance with no wheels. It moves us towards the glowing of the city with great swiftness. As we approach, the city seems to be made of crystal material. Soon we arrive at a large building that is a type I have never seen before. It appears to be right out of the design board of Frank Lloyd Wright, or perhaps more correctly, out of a Buck Rogers setting. We are given some type of warm beverage which tasted like nothing I've ever savored before. It is delicious. After about 10 minutes, two of our wondrous appearing hosts come to our quarters and announce that I am to accompany them. I have no choice but to comply. I leave my radio man behind, and we walk a short distance and enter what seems to be an elevator. We descend downward for some moments. The machine stops, and the door lifts silently upward. We proceed down a long hallway that is lit by rose-colored light and seems to be emanating from the walls themselves. One of the beings motions to us to stop before a great door. Over the door is an inscription that I cannot read. The great door slides noiselessly open, and I am beckoned to enter. One of my hosts speaks. "Have no fear, Admiral. You are to have an audience with the Master." "I bid you welcome to our domain, Admiral." I see a man with delicate features and with the etching of years upon his face. He is seated at a long table. He motions me to sit down in one of the chairs. After I am seated, he places his fingertips together and smiles. He speaks softly again and conveys the following. "We have let you enter here because you are of noble character and well known on the surface world, Admiral." "Surface world?" I half gasp under my breath. "Yes," the master replies with a smile. "You are in domain of the Ariani, the inner world of the earth." We shall not long delay your mission, and you will be safely escorted back to the surface and for a distance beyond. But now, Admiral, I shall tell you why you have been summoned here. Our interest rightly begins just after your race exploded the first atomic bombs over Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan. It was at that alarming time we sent our flying machines, the Flugelrods, to your surface world to investigate what your race had done. That is, of course, past history now, my dear Admiral, but I must continue on. You see, we have never interfered before in your race's wars and barbarity, but now we must, for you have learned to tamper with a certain power that is not for man, namely that of atomic energy. Our emissaries have already delivered messages to the powers of your world, and yet they do not heed. Now you have been chosen to be witness here that our world does exist. You see, our culture and science is many thousands of years beyond your race, Admiral. I interrupted. But what does this have to do with me, sir? The master's eyes seemed to penetrate deeply into my mind, and after studying me for a few moments, he replied, Your race has now reached the point of no return, for there are those among you who would destroy your very world rather than relinquish the power as they know it. I nodded, and the master continued. In 1945 and afterward, we tried to contact your race, but our efforts were met with hostility. Our Flugelrods were fired upon. Yes, even pursued with malice and animosity by your fighter planes. So now, I say to you, my son, there is a great storm gathering in your world, a black fury that will not spend itself for many years. There will be no answers in your armies. There will be no safety in your science. It may rage on until every flower of your culture is trampled and all human things are leveled in vast chaos. Your recent war was only a prelude to what yet to come for your race. We here see it more clearly with each hour. Do you say I am mistaken? Then he gestured with a lovely, slender hand, a motion of peace, and our meeting was truly ended. Quickly, we walked back through the great door of the master's chamber and once again entered into the elevator. The door slid silently downward, and we were once going upward. One of my hosts spoke again. We must now make haste, Admiral, as the master desires to delay you no longer on your scheduled timetable, and you must return with this message to your race. I said nothing. All of this was almost beyond belief, and once again my thoughts were interrupted as we stopped. I entered the room and was again with my radio man.
So this is from the diary of Admiral Byrd, Admiral Byrd's secret diary, Operation High Jump, Halloween. So a lot of people know about this, and shoo it, ignore it. The ravings of a lunatic. They actually put him in an insane asylum and killed him. But if you notice the talking points, are those not the same talking points of aliens? You reached a high level of technology. We're from the planet Sirius. We're here to help mankind evolve to the next level of evolution. We want to bring peace to the earth. Is that not what we hear today? What does the United Nations tell you? Oh, we're here to bring peace to the earth, to unify mankind, to give you what? Technology. Isn't that not what they say about the aliens? Is this not what Semyaza and Azazel and them did? And Coco Bell and them did? Understand this, that according to Enoch, they taught men technology. That's what we call it today. Whether you call it medical technology, computer technology, right? They taught men these things. So it's the same story. Now, if the fallen angels taught the men and the women of the past technology, what makes you think they're not today? Now, understand this, that the angels, quote unquote, watchers, are the same ones that cause men to sin, to cause them to look into the secret things. Now, if they caused men to sin and caused men to look into the secret things and gave them technology and showed them how to do things, then by logic, they were living amongst each other, right? Come on, let's use our, give me a yes or no, logically speaking, family. If you got the watchers, and according to Enoch, they taught them how to do these things and how to paint makeup and how to, you know, create all of these weapons of war. Did they not have to live amongst each other for them to show them? Yes or no? So if that is the case, according to Enoch, and if you believe in the book of Enoch like I do, the first book, I don't subscribe to the second book of Enoch, but the first book, the same version of Enoch that the Ethiopian church has, that's the one I like. So if they taught men this, then they were living together and they built what? Cities. Now, take note. This is very interesting. According to Admiral Byrd, it was a what? Crystal city. And they had what? High technology. What are we seeing today, family? Smart cities being created all around the world. Smart cities with what, family? Technology. Smart cities what, family? That compels you to adhere to the scientific rules and laws to survive and live there. And only what? The elite can live in the smart cities. So if the elite are going to live in these smart cities, and the smart cities are by definition smart, right? AI, artificial intelligence driven. It sounds to me like we're living in the book of Enoch. It sounds to me like we're dealing with what Admiral Byrd was talking about. See, what's really happening, and you got to have spiritual discernment. This is why everybody don't see it. What's really happening is the externalization of the hierarchy. That's one of the books by Helen Blavatsky. What we're seeing is the externalization of the hierarchy. We're seeing the externalization of, quote unquote, let me put it in this phraseology. We're seeing externalization of Zeus. We're seeing externalization of Thor. We're seeing the externalization of Odin. We're seeing the externalization of all the mythological gods who are the lowercase g, who have been interfacing with mankind. Now, remember what the story was about Zeus? Zeus came down on earth, saw that the women was fair in the form of a bull, had sex with a woman and produced Hercules. I'm just saying. Come on. But now we're seeing there's a similar story being told by people like Admiral Byrd. They went to, quote unquote, Argatha. Or they went to a place called Asgard. They saw a city that was of crystal and high technology. I'm just saying, come on now. And we have an example within society of an exponential growth of technology unlike you would imagine. I mean, it's really at the point of magic. I told you, go look at that video that's in the community post. You'll see what I'm talking about. They're creating artificial atoms, and these atoms are coming together and combining and creating things. This is insane. Not only are they doing that, they're trying to manipulate people's DNA through the lollipop. I know people are going to say, you're a nut. This is conspiracy theory. But guess what? The Bible says only the wise will understand. The wicked will not understand. See, a lot of people don't want to understand. They don't want to really see what the scriptures are really saying. They want to believe in their quote unquote Catholic doctrine, whether you call yourself a Baptist, whether you call yourself a Methodist, whether you call yourself a whatever. They want to believe in doctrine. They don't want to believe what the scripture says. I'm telling you. How can a world be so corrupt? How can a world be at the level where they're about to put a chip or a mark or a tattoo on your right hand or forehead where you won't be able to buy, trade, or sell? How can they be so corrupt where they're manipulating the very DNA that you have? They're sending messages throughout your body. How can they get to a level of this sophistication in such a short time unless they were having help, unless they are being taught by Semyaza, Coco Bell, and all these other watchers? Think about it for a second. Now I know some of you all, it ain't gonna never get into your head. You because it's too much for you, because you don't believe in the supernatural. You don't believe that the supernatural interfaces with the physical. But like I said, even in scripture, the supernatural what? Interfaces with the physical. This is the reality of the book you say you believe. So understand, Admiral Byrd had this story. But do you know that Admiral Byrd wasn't the only one that had a story like this? Here's a book called The Smoky God. Willis George Emerson. This is the story by a guy who says he went where? To an inner earth. This was before Admiral Byrd. This was before Admiral Byrd. Now, I'm going to put the... Well, I don't have the link because I already downloaded it. But you could Google it, right? You can find this in archives. It's called The Smoky God. And this is the story of a guy who went to the inner earth, went to what we call the North Pole or Antarctica. And he tells a similar story to that of Admiral Byrd. So I'm skipping a whole bunch of pages because, you know, it's long, but just bear with me for a little bit. So it says, it was now according to this after him being on the ocean for a while, and they were heading towards where they knew this place existed, right? So this guy wanted to go back there, and his uncle put him in an insane asylum for 20 years. He didn't come out of the insane asylum until he was 50. And so he wanted to go to this place. So he ended up going to this place, and they were on the ocean in a fishing boat. And, you know, they ran out of food and water because a storm happened, and some of their food supplies fell over. And so they got to this point where the water smoothed out, because at first the seas were rough. And, you know, they were about to die of thirst. And so they were like, well, I'm going to drink this seawater. And according to him, they drank the seawater, and the seawater was pure, because they got to this point that they never been, which is what we call the inner earth, or call the hollow earth, or in my opinion, what the Bible calls Sheol. But let's continue. So it was now, according to our reckoning, about the 1st of August, the sun was high in the heavens and was so bright that I could no longer see the one lone star that attracted my attention a few days earlier. One day about this time, my father startled me by calling my attention to a novel sight far in front of us, almost at the horizon. It is a mock sun, exclaimed my father. I've read of them. It is called a reflection or mirage. It will soon pass away. But this dull, red, false sun as we supposed it to be, did not pass away for several hours. Now, what are we trying to create in China? What did China have? What did they create? A fake sun? I'm just saying, come on. Is China not creating a fake sun, family? Yes or no? Maybe some of you all don't know that. Google it. Google's your friend. So there was a fake sun, and it didn't pass away for several hours. And while we were unconscious of its emitting any rays of light, still there was no time thereafter when we could not sweep the horizon in front and locate the illumination of the so-called false sun during a period of at least 12 hours out of every 24. Now, I'm going to pause right here for a second and come back. Now, y'all know about the Azov Battalion, right? The Azov Battalion is that Nazi group over in the Ukraine right now. This is what they have because they're Nazis, right? They have what they call the Black Sun. Now, also know that the swastika, which is similar to what you see here, was of the Black Sun. So it is known as the Schwarz Sun in German. Now, notice that we're dealing with Germans. The idea of the Black Sun as the ordinary sun's opposite can be traced back to esoteric and occult movements of the 19th century. Its modern incarnation was most likely designed what? For the SS. Some neo-pagan and Satanist cults use the Black Sun as an esoteric symbol, and it was also used as an esoteric symbol in Nazi occultism. So the Nazis are the ones we were at war with, World War II. According to many people, a lot of the Nazis went where? To the North Pole. They went to the Antarctic and set up a base somewhere out there. Could it be the same place? Because that's who Admiral Byrd was chasing. According to Admiral Byrd, he heard that some of these Nazis went there, and that's why they went with these ships and planes, because they were going to handle business. Now, in the Smoky God, we see that there's a fake sun. Can we say a black sun? So it says that there was a false sun. We just so happen to be creating false suns, just like China did recently. Is it all a coincidence? Is it a coincidence? And how did the technological progress of China and the rest of the world get to the point that they can create a false sun? Maybe what we're hearing is true. Maybe this stuff is real. Maybe there is a place where the giants are. Maybe there is a place where the Nephilim are. Maybe there is a place where the lowercase g demigods are, called watchers. It is our opinion that there are even continents that are not on the maps. They're hidden. And there's also this subterranean world where the Bible refers to as Sheol, where these people live. Remember, in that area called Sheol was also Abraham's bosom, where the righteous dead were until Yeshua came and brought them back. Maybe at the same time, there's another area where people were living, not just the disembodied people. I'm just saying, is it all a coincidence? They had a fake sun. They're in the earth. Now China's creating a fake sun. Why? Why? Now, take note of this. It was called the Black Sun. Why? Now, it according to him, it emitted no rays. What does Bill Gates and everybody want to do? I'm just asking. What does Bill Gates and everybody want to do? They want to what? Block out the real sun. If you're going to block out the real sun, then you're going to need what? A replacement sun, a fake sun. I'm just saying it makes sense to me. Is this stuff coincidence? But let's continue. So remember, Enoch said that the watchers taught mankind all these technologies. Let's just use that word, technology, whether it's medical or whatever. So clouds and mist would at times almost, but never entirely hide its location. What? Clouds and mist. What does Bill Gates want to do? Hide the sun. Why? So the people could come up from where they're at? I'm just speculating. So gradually it seemed to climb higher in the horizon of the uncertain purple sky as we advanced. It could hardly be said to resemble the sun, except in its circular shape, and when not obscured by clouds or the ocean mist, it had a hazy red, bronzed appearance, which would change to a white light like a luminous cloud, as if reflecting some greater light beyond. We finally agreed in our discussion of this smoky furnace colored sun that whatever the cause of the phenomena, it was not a reflection of our sun, but a planet of some sort, a reality. Nansen on page 394 says, today another noteworthy thing happened, which was that about midday we saw the sun, or to be more correct, an image of the sun, for it was only a mirage. A peculiar impression was produced by the sight of that glowing fire, lit just above the outermost edge of the ice, according to the enthusiastic description given by many Arctic travelers of the first appearance of this god of life after the long winter night. The impression ought to be one of jubilant excitement, but it was not so in my case. We had not expected to see it. What did he see? A fake sun. See, I'm telling you, this world is in trouble. This stuff is starting to make sense. Even though it was called conspiracy theories, it's starting to make sense. The whole mythological ideas of Odin, the whole mythological idea of Zeus, these fallen angels, these watchers and the demigods, and all of this stuff is starting to make sense. Their children, Hercules, I'm like, it all starts to make sense. Now, let's assume this is real. Now, let's assume that they are about to what? Externalize the hierarchy. Because the Bible says the whole world worship the beast whose name is not written in the Lamb's book of life. What if the Antichrist is one of these people? What if the Antichrist is the quote unquote master? Now, in other writings, they say the master of the world, I've seen. Who's the God of this world who deceives the world? That's Satan, the adversary. Who's the adversaries? Against Israel, of course, and mankind. Why do you think we're being killed and tormented and all this stuff? Why are these people hating us so much and we ain't do nothing? Why as soon as they see a young black man, they got to pop, 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 pop? Why? There's something going on, and I'm telling you, it is sci-fi horror. It is sci-fi horror. Now you're gonna have the urban apologists over there, and they're gonna say, "Oh, look what they're teaching over there at Till Ministry." All I'm saying, you put the pieces together what the scriptures say. You put the pieces together what the Apocrypha say. You put the pieces together of what the pseudepigrapha say, and what do you come out with? There's a hidden world on this planet where Satan is ruling from a city that many cultures refer to as Agartha, referred to as Asgard, referred to as Shambhala. I'm just saying. So one day soon after this, I felt exceedingly drowsy and fell into a sound sleep. But it seemed that I was almost immediately aroused by my father's vigorous shaking of me. For some days yet, so that my feeling was rather one of pain, of disappointment, that we must have drifted farther south than we thought. So it was with pleasure I soon discovered that it could not be the sun itself. The mirage was at first a flattened out, glowing red streak of fire on the horizon. Later, there were two streaks, the one above the other, with a dark space between, and from the main top, I could see 4 or even 5 such horizontal lines directly over one another, all of equal length, as if one could only imagine a square, dull red sun with horizontal dark streaks across it. By the shoulder saying, Olaf, awaken, there is land in sight. I sprang to my feet, oh joy unspeakable. Therefore, in the distance, yet directly in our path, were lands jutting boldly into the sea. The short line stretched far away to the right of us, as far as the eye could see, and all along the sandy beach were waves breaking into choppy foam, receding, then going forward again, ever chanting in monotonous thundertones and the song of the deep. The banks were covered with trees and vegetation. I cannot express my feeling of exultation at this discovery. My father stood motionless with his hand on the tiller, looking straight ahead, pouring out his heart in thankful prayer. Now, his father was a pagan, and thanksgiving to the gods Odin and Thor. So his father worshiped Odin and Thor. In the meantime, a net which we found in the stowage had been cast, and we caught a few fish that materially added to our dwindling stock of provisions. The compass which we had fastened back in its place in fear of another storm was still pointing due north and moving on its pivot, just as it had at Stockholm. The dipping of the needle had ceased. What could this mean? Then, too, our many days of sailing and certainly carried us far past the North Pole, and yet the needle continued to point north. Now, I'm going to skip down a little bit because I don't want to be reading this all day. All right. Let's see. I'm going to go here. All right. I'm going to start here. It was about the 1st of September, over 5 months. We calculated since our leave taking from Stockholm. Suddenly, we were frightened almost out of our wits by hearing in the far distance the singing of people. Very soon thereafter, we discovered a huge ship gliding down the river directly toward us. Those aboard were singing in one mighty chorus that, echoing from bank to bank, sounded like 1,000 voices filling the whole universe with quivering melody. Can we say a cruise ship? The accompaniment was played on stringed instruments, not unlike our harps. It was a larger ship than any we have ever seen. It was a what? Larger ship than any we have ever seen, and was definitely constructed. Can we say a cruise ship? Y'all know how big our cruise ships are. Where do you think we got the idea of cruise ships from? Where do you think we got ships so big? A cruise ship that big. I'm just saying. Let's continue. Maybe it's just me. So Asiatic mythology, page 240, Paradise Found from translation by Saisi in a book called Records of the Past. We were told of a dwelling which the gods created for the first human beings. A dwelling. All right, so let's continue. At this particular time, our sloop was becalmed and not far from the shore. The bank of the river, covered with mammoth trees, rose up several hundred feet in beautiful fashion. We seemed to be on the edge of some primeval forest that doubtless stretched far inland. The immense craft paused, and almost immediately a boat was lowered, and 6 men of gigantic stature rowed to our little fishing sloop. Who? Giants. Now, this guy, he don't believe the Bible. This guy follows Odin and Thor. This guy is a straight up pagan who wrote this. And he said what? 6 men of what? Gigantic stature rowed to our little fishing sloop. They spoke to us in a strange language. We knew from their manner, however, look at that, giants. White giants. Remember what I told y'all for those who saw, I think it was the divine right to rule, where when the Moors went to Europe and they saw giant white folks. I'm just saying, I'm just telling you, I'm just telling you what the document said, what the tapestry said. It ain't me. I ain't write the book. That they were not unfriendly. They talked a great deal among themselves, and one of them laughed immoderately, as though in finding us a queer discovery had been made. One of them spied our compass, and it seemed to interest them more than any other part of our sloop. Finally, the leader motioned as if to ask whether we were willing to leave our craft to go on board their ship. What say you, my son? Asked my father. They cannot do any more than kill us. They seem to be kindly disposed, I replied, although that terrible giants. They must be the select six of the kingdom's crack regiment. Just look at their great size. We may as well go willingly as be taken by force, said my father, smiling, for they are certainly able to capture us. Thereupon he made known by signs that we were ready to accompany them. Within a few minutes, we were on board the ship, and half an hour later, our little fishing craft had been lifted bodily out of the water by a strange sort of hook and tackle and set on board as a curiosity. So they put his fishing boat on their boat. How big was that fishing boat? I mean, not the fishing boat. How big was the boat that these people were on? Probably the size of a cruise ship. He said it was bigger than anything he ever saw. It was massive. They picked up their fishing boat and put it on their boat. I'm just saying. First cruise ship. There were several hundred people on board this, to us, mammoth ship, which we discovered was called the Nas, meaning, as we afterward learned, pleasure. Now, let me ask y'all a question for you scholars out there and all that stuff. The name of the, I'm just speculating. You know what I'm saying? I just speculate. The name of the ship was Nas. Is it a coincidence that the Germans were called the Nazis? The Azov Battalion people are Nazis. Now, for you scholars out there, isn't it usually when you put an I on the end, it usually means the people of the Nas, or the people who are, of the Nas, Nazi, the people of the Nas? Isn't that usually the case? So Nazi would be the people of the Nas. I'm just saying that. I'm speculating. I eat the meat, spit out the bone. I just find this stuff curious. So, meaning, as we afterward learn, pleasure, or to give a more proper interpretation, pleasure excursion ship. He said pleasure excursion ship. Can I say cruise ship, family? Come on now. Did they have cruise ships back in the early 1900s, the late 1800s when this was written? The late 1800s. I'm just saying. I mean, maybe, but they didn't have none of this size. I mean, the Titanic was what, the 1920s, right? So this was a pleasure ship. And there was a bunch of people singing. Come on, you can't make this stuff up. Back in the late 1890s, according to this guy, there was a huge, massive ship with people dancing on it, singing, having a party, drinking, and laughing and singing. I'm just saying. And it was called a pleasure ship. I'm just saying. Maybe I'm just seeing things. So the name of the ship was the Nas, and it means pleasure excursion ship. We could say cruise ship. Okay, 1912. So this was this book was written in the late 1890s. I'm just saying. So anyway, if my father and I were curiously observed by the ship's occupants, this strange race of giants offered us an equal amount of wonderment. There was not a single man aboard who would not have measured fully 12 feet in height. So they all were giants on a cruise ship. They all wore full beards, not particularly long, but seemingly short cropped. They had mild and beautiful faces, exceedingly fair, with ruddy complexions. The hair and beard of some were black, others sandy, still others yellow. The captain, as we designated the dignitary in command of the great vessel, was fully a head taller than any of his companions. The women averaged from 10 to 11 feet in height. Their features were especially regular and refined, while their complexion was of a most delicate tint, heightened by a healthful glow. Both men and women seemed to possess that particular ease of manner which we deem a sign of good breeding, and notwithstanding their huge statures. There was nothing about them suggesting awkwardness, as I was a lad in only my 19th year. I was doubtless looked upon as true Tom Thumb. I'm just saying, saying y'all, this whole thing is supposed to be this guy's true story. It lines up with Admiral Byrd stuff. It lines up with the scriptures. We got giants and everything. I'm just saying. Anyway, my father, 6'3", did not lift the top of his head above the waist of these people. Each one seemed to vie with the others in extending courtesies and showing kindness to us, but all laughed heartily. I remember when they had to improvise chairs for my father and myself to sit at a table. They were richly attired in a costume peculiar to themselves and very attractive. The men were clothed in handsomely embroidered tunics of silk and satin and belted at the waist. They wore knee breeches and stockings of a fine texture, while their feet were encased in sandals adorned with gold buckles. We early discovered that gold was one of the most common metals known and that it was used extensively in decoration. Strange as it may seem, neither my father nor myself felt the least bit of solitude for our safety. "We've come into our own," my father said to me. "This is the fulfillment of the tradition told me by my father, and my father's father, and still back for many generations of our race. This is assuredly the land beyond the north wind." We seemed to make such an impression on the party that we were given specially into the charge of one of the men, Jules Gaudia, and his wife, for the purpose of being educated in their language, and we on our part were just as eager to learn as they were to instruct. At the captain's command, the vessel was swung cleverly about and began retracting its course up the river. The machinery, while noiseless, was very powerful. The banks and trees on either side seemed to rush by. The ship's speed at times surpassed that of any railroad train on which I have ever ridden. Even here in America, it was wonderful. In the meantime, we had lost sight of the sun's rays, but we found a radiance within emanating from the dull red sun, which had already attracted our attention, now giving out a white light seemingly from a cloud bank far away in front of us. It dispensed a greater light, I should say, than 2 full moons on a clearest night. In 12 hours, this cloud of whiteness would pass out of sight as if eclipsed, and the 12 hours following corresponded with our night. We early learned that these strange people were worshippers of this great cloud of night. It was the smoky god of of the inner world. It was the smoky god of the inner world. The ship was equipped with a mode of illumination which I now presume was electricity, but neither my father nor myself were succinctly skilled in mechanics to understand whence came the power to operate the ship, or to maintain the soft, beautiful lights that answered the same purpose of our present methods of lighting the streets of our cities, our houses, and places of business. It must be remembered the time of which I write was the autumn of 1829, and we of the outside, so it's 1829, outside surface of the earth knew nothing then, so to speak, of electricity. The electrically surcharged condition of the air was a constant vitalizer. I never felt better in my life than during the 2 years my father and I sojourned on the inside of the earth. To resume my narrative of events, the ship on which we were sailing came to a stop 2 days after we had been taken on board. My father said, as nearly as he could judge, we were directly under Stockholm or London. No wonder that's where all of the money and the rulership is, huh? London, Sweden. I'm just saying. The city we had reached was called Jehu, or can we say Yehu? Signifying a seaport town. The houses were large and beautifully constructed and quite uniform in appearance, yet without sameness. So listen to this, fam. Let me read this again to you. The houses were what? Large and beautifully constructed and quite uniform in appearance. Now, think of the houses we have today. Are they not uniform in appearance, right? Now, without sameness, a little difference, right? They all look sort of the same, but a little different. The principal occupation of the people appeared to be agriculture. The hillsides were covered with vineyards, while the valleys were devoted to the growing of grain. I never saw such a display of gold. It was everywhere. The door casings were inlaid, and the tables were veneered with sheetings of gold. Domes of public buildings were of gold. It was used most generously in the finishings of the great temples of music. Vegetation grew in lavish exuberance, and fruit of all kinds possessed the most delicate flavor. Clusters of grapes 4 and 5 feet in length. What does that remind you of? Does it not remind you of when Caleb and them went into the promised land? Each grape as large as an orange, and apples larger than a man's head, typified the wonderful growth of all things on the inside of the earth. Come on now. So Joshua and Caleb then went into the promised land, and they had to carry the grapes on a staff. Now, if we think about what this guy is saying here, it's similar story. What? Because there's giants here. What did they have in the promised land? Giants. Now, the question is, why were the grapes so big? Could it have been genetic manipulation so that the giants could have enough food to eat? Because remember, according to Enoch, they ran out of food and started eating men. I'm just saying. The great redwood trees of California would be considered mere underbrush compared with the giant forest trees extending for miles and miles in all directions. I don't know if y'all remember, when I had Big Red on, we talked about the giant trees that were in the earth. But anyway, I'm telling you this stuff. It makes sense now. Hard to believe, but it makes sense. In many directions along the foothills of the mountains, vast herds of cattle were seen during the last day of our travel on the river. We heard much of the city called Eden, but were kept at Yehu for an entire year. By the end of that time, we had learned to speak fairly well the language of this strange race of people. Our instructor, Jules Gaudia, and his wife exhibited a patience that was truly commendable. One day, an envoy from the ruler at Eden came to see us, and for 2 whole days, my father and myself were put through a series of surprising questions. They wished to know from whence we came and what sort of people dwelt without, what God we worship, our religious beliefs, the mode of living in our strange land, and 1,000 other things. The compass which we had brought with us attracted special attention. My father and I commented between ourselves on the fact that the compass still pointed north, although we now knew that we had sailed over the curve or edge of the Earth's aperture and were far along southward of the inside surface of the Earth's crust. Now remember, this is the exact same thing that Bird said, which according to my father's estimate and my own is about 300 miles in thickness from the inside to the outside surface. Relatively speaking, it is no thicker than an eggshell, so that there is almost as much surface on the inside as on the outside of the Earth. The great luminous cloud or ball of dull red fire, fiery red in the mornings and evenings, and during the day giving off a beautiful white light. The smoky god is seemingly suspended in the center of a great vacuum within the earth and held to its place by the immutable law of gravitation or a repellent atmosphere force, as the case may be. I refer to the known power that draws or repels with equal force in all directions. The base of this electrical cloud or central luminary, the seat of the gods, is dark and non-transparent, save for innumerable small openings, seemingly in the bottom of the great support or altar of the deity upon which the smoky god rests. And the light shining through these many openings twinkle at night in all their splendor and seemed to be stars as natural as the stars we saw shining when in our home at Stockholm, excepting that they appear larger. The smoky god, therefore, which is, this sun, this black sun or red sun or whatever, the smoky god, therefore, with each daily revolution of the earth, appears to come up in east and go down in the west, the same as does our sun on the external surface. In reality, the people within believe that the smoky god is the throne of their Jehovah and is stationary. The effect of night and day is therefore produced by the earth's daily rotation. I've since discovered that the language of the people of the inner world is much like Sanskrit. After we have had given an account of ourselves to the emissaries from the central seat of the government of the inner continent, and my father had in this crude way drawn maps at their request of the outside surface of the earth, showing the divisions of land and water and giving the name of each of the continents, large islands in the oceans, we were taken overland to the city of Eden in a conveyance different from anything we have seen in Europe or America. Now, whether it's the biblical Eden, I don't know, right? But it's called Eden. Maybe it's named after that, right? I'm going to be coming to an end soon. But, okay, so this vehicle was doubtless some electrical contrivance. It was noiseless. Look, listen to the technology. It was noiseless and ran what? On a single iron rail in perfect balance. So this was on a single rail in perfect balance. The trip was made at a what? Very high rate of speed. What does that sound like to you? Those, what they call those super trains or whatever those things? We were carried up hills and down dales, across valleys, and again along the sides of steep mountains, without any apparent attempt having been made to level the earth, as we do for railroad tracks. The car seats were huge at comfortable affairs and very high above the floor of the car. I don't know if some of you all saw the, yeah, that's it, maglev. That's it. Thank you. Yeah, and monorails. So now we got all this stuff. Now, remember, this is 1829 or 1826, I think he said. How would this guy know this unless he saw it? How would he know this, what we have today? And some of those, what we call those roller coasters that's on a single rail. So this thing was on a single rail, keeping balance on the rail on mountains. We only had this thing on recently. Now, where does this come from? How come this guy knew about this stuff way back then? And we have this today. See, this, in my opinion, is the externalization of the hierarchy, which is the externalization of the technology, which is the control of humanity, which is going to be the chip implants. Because I believe that everyone in this supposed civilization, in this underworld or inner world, everyone in there are probably chipped. Everyone is probably part of the Borg collective. Everyone is probably controlled through AI, and Satan controls everything they do, they think, and I guarantee it's hell on earth for them. That's what I believe is happening, and they're externalizing this city, this kingdom of Satan on earth to the rest of the world. And I think what's going to happen is that the Antichrist is going to be somebody from this world. That's why they keep preparing us for aliens. And this guy is going to come and say, I'm the master of this kingdom. And we increased your technology. That's why your technology has increased so quickly, because we have helped you to evolve. I mean, this is the message they keep telling us. So the car seats were huge yet comfortable affairs and very high above the floor of the car. On the top of each car were high geared flywheels lying on their sides, which were so automatically adjusted that as the speed of the car increased, the high speed of these flywheels geometrically increased. Does this not sound like our tech today? Does this not sound like the roller coasters and the monorails and all of this stuff, the maglevs? I mean, this is the 1800s, fam. So Jules Gaudia explained to us that these revolving fan-like wheels on top of the cars destroyed atmospheric pressure, or what is generally understood by the term gravitation, and with this force thus destroyed or rendered nugatory, the car is as safe from falling to one side or the other from the single rail track as if it were in a vacuum. The flywheels, in their rapid revolution, destroying effectually the so-called power of gravitation or the force of atmospheric pressure or whatever potent influence it may be that causes all unsupported things to fall downward to the earth's surface or to the nearest point of resistance. The surprise of my father and myself was indescribable when, amid the regal magnificence of a spacious hall, we were finally brought before the great high priest, ruler over all the land. He was richly robed and much taller than those about him, and could not have been less than 14 or 15 feet in height. The immense room in which we were received seemed finished in solid slabs of gold, thickly studded with jewels of amazing brilliancy. The city of Eden is located in what seems to be a beautiful valley, yet in fact it is on the loftiest mountain plateau of the inner continent, several thousand feet higher than any portion of surrounding country. It is the most beautiful place I've ever beheld in all my travels. In this elevated garden, all manner of fruits, vines, shrubs, trees, and flowers grow in righteous profusion. In this garden, 4 rivers have their source in a mighty artesian fountain. So I guess he's trying to tie this into the biblical Eden. I wouldn't know. They divide and flow in 4 directions. This place is called by the inhabitants the navel of the earth, or the beginning, the cradle of human race. The names of the rivers of the Euphrates, the Pison, the Gihon, and the Hiddekel. The unexpected awaited us in this palace of beauty in the finding of our little fishing craft. It had been brought before the high priest in perfect shape, just as it had been taken from the waters that day when it was loaded on board the ship by the people who discovered us on the river more than a year before. We were given an audience of over 2 hours with a great dignitary who seemed kindly disposed and considerate. He showed himself eagerly interested, asking us numerous questions and invariably regarding things about which his emissaries had failed to inquire. At the conclusion of the interview, he inquired our pleasure, asking us whether we wished to remain in this country or if we preferred to return to the outer world, providing it were possible to make a successful return trip across the frozen belt barriers that encircle both the northern and southern openings of the earth. My father replied, "It will please me and my son to visit your country and see your people, your colleagues, your colleges and palaces of music and art, your great fields, your wonderful forests of timber, and after we have had this pleasurable privilege, we should like to try to return to our home on the outside surface of the earth. This son is my only child, and my good wife will be weary awaiting our return." Excuse me. "I fear you can never return," replied the chief high priest, "because the way is a most hazardous one. However, you shall visit the different countries with Jules Gaudia as your escort and be accorded every courtesy and kindness. Whenever you are ready to attempt a return voyage, I assure you that your boat, which is here on exhibition, shall be put in the waters of the river Hiddekel at its mouth, and we will bid you Jehovah's speed." This terminated our only interview with the high priest or ruler of the continent. So think of this. 1820s. This guy wrote this book. He's talking about maglev trains or monorails, whatever you want to call it. He's talking about a cruise ship, people dancing, singing, drinking on it like we do today. Talking about houses that are similar but not similar like we have today. I'm like, okay, what are the odds that this guy see before we got to this point in time, maybe we could chalk it up to this guy's crazy, right? We could talk it up to this guy's crazy until we got to the times where we see maglev trains and we see giant cruise ships and all these things this guy is talking about. Now, either he could see the future, right? He's a prophet, or this guy went to the inner earth. So as I mentioned, my brother and I, we talk about a lot of these things because we believe, okay, yeah, there may be an inner earth like this, this society where the Nephilim have retreated to, right? The offspring of the Watchers. Because the offspring of the Watchers were what? Before the flood and after the flood. The Bible says, as it was in the days of Noah, so shall the coming of the Son of Man be. We know there were giants then as well. If there were giants then, there's giants now. All at the time of the awakening of the Israelites, this technology is being exposed and they're on fast forward because their time is short. They have an artificial sun and we're making artificial suns. What are the odds? What are the odds we're creating artificial suns? They have artificial suns. What are the odds that, it's one thing to talk about the giants. Okay, say, well, maybe he had the Bible, he had some of the pseudepigraphia. And so he put in this story of the giants. But what about the technology? How could you figure this out of what we're doing today and what we have today? What are the odds? So I wanted to share this with you all because what I have on the community post is technology that's beyond human. It makes no sense. Them boys, in my opinion, are not that smart. I don't care. You got PhDs behind PhDs. Ain't no man that smart gonna come up with that. Basically opening and reading the book of life. And the plans that they have for humanity that we see being implemented today. Like when I showed you the hand scan. We know right now it's looking at the vein patterns in your hand. Next is going to be looking at that tattoo and getting information off of the tattoo. Or the chip implant. What is it with the super cities or the high-tech cities or the smart cities? What is it with the blockchain and everything digital? What is it with the electric cars and the high-tech advancement of what this guy is pretty much talking about? Why does our society today look like what this guy talked about over 100 years ago? I'm just saying, I ask questions. I told you I like to ask questions. See, there's something going on that people can't believe because they don't want to believe, because they don't believe that the spiritual interfaces with the supernatural. But according to the book of Enoch, the spiritual does interface with the supernatural. What is spirit? Stop thinking of spirit as ghost. The angels are considered spiritual beings. But according to what we call canon, they have a body that's celestial. We have bodies that are terrestrial, earth-like. So they took the heavenly, the celestial, and came in and merged the celestial with the physical. That was against the rules. That was against the Most High laws. And the whole world got destroyed for it. Now we're back at it again and people getting a lollipop. I'm not saying it's making you something yet, but if you keep down that road, think about it. There's something wrong. There's a black sun, according to this guy in the inner earth, and we're creating artificial suns. There's a false sun created in the inner earth, and now we're creating false suns. Why are we doing these things? Why do we have the technology today that we see in this book? Coincidence, maybe. I don't believe in coincidence. I think this is beyond coincidence because our experience today validates this guy's story. Let me ask you a question, family. Just curious. Say yes if you agree, no if you disagree. Do you think what we saw technologically wise in this book validates his story of what we see today? Artificial suns, maglev trains, cruise ships. I'm like, what are the odds? And it just so happened to be giants on those ships. I'm like, come on, what are the odds? Do you have an imagination that big where you could come up with this type of description of technology that we see today? What are the odds? It's highly likely that, and I don't know, but what if, because they've been preparing us for aliens, what if they come and say, we are your gods, right? I am the master of the universe. Remember the book Smoky God. Remember what Admiral Byrd said about the inner earth? Yes, that's me. That's us. That's us. But we came from the planet Sirius, and we set up home aeons ago on this planet, and we've been managing the evolutionary migration of humanity. So now you all bow down and worship me because I am, quote unquote, your God, the master of the universe, right? He-Man. I'm the master of the universe. So bow down and worship me. Take my mark. Take my chip. I'm just saying. It sounds crazy, but it makes sense. Peace and blessings, Israel. Your captivity is ending. Love you with the love of the Messiah. If you want to support this ministry, please do so. You know, you can see at the bottom of the screen, you can become a Patreon member. If you want to continuously support us, and you can give Cash App if you want to support us. And also share this video is very important because understand this, fam. Understand this. We in trouble. We need to cry out to the Most High. I don't care what they're doing over there in other places and other channels and all this stuff. Y'all must know that we are in trouble. Y'all must know that we are in dire straits. They are trying to either, let me control my words a little bit. They are trying to dispose of us who are serving the Most High and who are his children. And they are trying to take over the world to create this utopia called the New World Order. We are at the end of their plan. We are at the culmination of the New World Order. We are at the final resolution of who's going to rule this thing. And these people been playing with these fallen angels, with the watchers, for eons. And now the whole world is about to be controlled through this electrical grid, this tokenized based system where everything you touch, you buy, you drink, you smell, you smoke is tokenized and charged. But you're going to be part of a system that is part of a social credit system that if you obey, you get free food, you get free water, you get free housing, you get free air. You're part of the utopia so long as you obey. And so long as you don't condemn anybody, so long as you say it's okay to be a dud, so long as you don't care about pronouns, you can be a part of the system so long as you obey. But if you don't obey, we're going to turn off your chip. We're going to turn off your mark, and you can't buy, trade, or sell unless you have the mark, his name, or the number of his name. I'm just saying something's wrong. This is what I'm seeing. Share this video. Peace and blessings, Israel. Your captivity is ending. Please make sure to support the Dry Bones Project. Pray, family. We need to seek the Most High. Cry out. Bye.